It's a great honor for me to be here, so I'll start from the quote. The one body of ideologically committed agents supporting the invasion was the Russian Orthodox Church. Beyond its efforts to support Russian information operations, its priests were widely recreated and run by the Russian special services, and the monasteries and churches used as safe houses for equipment and personnel. The use of religion as a cover is not only a widely established method of the Russian special services, but also creates its own protection mechanism because of the political sensitivities of state targeting of religious institutes. For this reason, it took some time for the Ukrainian state to move to constrain the activities of these parts of Russia's support apparatus even after the Great Invasion. This is a quote from a report by the British Royal Institute of Defense Studies, whose analysts spoke with representatives of Ukrainian and Western intelligence and analyzed it in order to understand exactly how Russia was preparing for great invasion. The report was published at the end of March 23. The organizers asked me to focus on the misuse of religion and speak about religion as a source of resilience. I must note that the topic is formulated very preciously, as over the past year and a half, the question of church in Ukraine has ceased to be purely religious and has transformed into a question of national security, in the most literal sense of the word. More than 50 representatives of the UOK-MP, ranging from ordinary rural priests to members of the episcopate, have been suspected by the security service of Ukraine of committing criminal offenses. Typically, it's the Article 161 of the Criminal Code of Ukraine, which relates to inciting religious enmity. However, denying and justifying the armed aggression of the Russian Federation against Ukraine, it's Article 436, also of Criminal Code of Ukraine, carries a significant prison term. The first court, also our security service. The first court verdict against a metropolitan was delivered in May. It was the former head of the Kirovograd eparchy Iosaf, here is with Patriarch Kirill. According to the investigation, Iosaf was part of Patriarch Kirill's close circle and coordinated subversive activities against Ukraine. Iosaf, as well as the secretary of the eparchy who was involved in the same case, fully admitted their guilt and cooperated with the investigation. Thanks to this, the sentences was mitigated to 3 years in prison with a probationary period of 2 years and holding and a prohibition on holding leadership positions in religious organizations for 1 year. Suspicions against other metropolitan are currently being considered in course. Perhaps the most well-known among them is Metropolitan Pavlo Lebed, the former abbot of the male monastery of the UOK-MP in Kyivo-Pecherska Lavra. Since May, he has been under house arrest in his luxury estate near Kyiv. It's his house, it's inside. Yeah. The accusations against him are very much more serious than those against Iosaf, and he faces a long prison term. Early courts had already handed down verdicts for ordinary priests of the UOK-MP who not only fueled interreligious hostility but also worked as spotters for enemy artillery. One such priest, Father Andrei from Severodonetsk. Here is Father Andrei, and here is Evgeny Prigozhin, the head of ЧВК Wagner. One of Father Andrei from Severodonetsk was exchanged for Ukrainian prisoners of war in December, at the end of December. And the head of Wagner company, Evgeny Prigozhin, personally came to the Russian border to meet him personally. In addition, 19 priors of the OKMP, including bishops, have been deprived of Ukrainian citizenship. The reason is their possession of passports from other countries, which is explicitly prohibited by the Ukrainian constitution. Typically, these are Russian passports, and Metropolitan Onufriy is a holder of Russian passport. Think about it. The leader of the Ukrainian church is a citizen of Russia in the times of the war. However, the record was set by a priest from Odessa who has 5 passports. 5. Another 30 clergymen of the OKMP are subjects of economic sanctions. These include Diakon Vadim Novinsky, here is with Metropolitan Onufriy, who has been a major sponsor of this structure for many, many years. More than 10 representatives of the OKMP, from priors to metropolitans, are collaborators and have fled to Russia. For example, Yelisei from Izum supported the occupiers and their so-called administration, and after the Ukrainian armed force liberated the Kharkiv region, he went to Russia. Archbishop Arkady from Rovinki, located in Luhansk Oblast, initiated the transition of his eparchy under the direct omophorion of the Russian Orthodox Church. Currently, he frequently travels from Russia to the temporary occupied territories of Luhansk to coerce his colleagues to also seek to omophorion of Moscow. Paradoxically, Metropolitan Panteleimon of Lugansk was even personally present along with 2 other deans of the Berdyansk eparchy at the solemn ceremony of so-called annexation of new territories in Moscow Kremlin. However, he does not want to switch to the omophorion of Kremlin. Of Kirill, sorry. Here he is in this ceremony. Similarly, the leader of the Berdyansk eparchy, Yefrem, was forced to seek the omophorion to Kirill due to the fact that these lands are still under Russian occupation. Recently, he even went to Moscow, where he had a meeting with Patriarch Kirill and promised that Berdyansk eparchy under his leadership would declare its transition. But upon returning home, he gathered his closest associates and informed them that it was just a bluff, and he himself does not want to seek the omophorion and fears of his life as a result. The next day, he left for Europe. 4 priors in the Berdyansk eparchy decided to voluntarily seek the omophorion. Naturally, the Holy Synod of Russian Orthodox Church satisfied their request. However, the leader of the OKMP, Metropolitan Onufriy, prohibited them from serving. A notable comment on this matter came from the theologian Kirill Govorun, who noted that it is the unique example of prohibition within a single jurisdiction. Since we have already mentioned the omophorion, I cannot help but mention that the Crimea parishes were the first to take this step immediately after the historic meeting of the UOK Council on May 27, 2022, when they declared the alleged rupture of relations with Moscow. However, both canonically and practically, the OKMP continues to remain part of the Russian Orthodox Church. One piece of evidence for this is that Kiev did not react at all to the de facto annexation of the eparchies by Moscow. The OKMP also did not react to the collaboration of their representatives with the enemy. They simply don't notice them. Even the 3 metropolitans who fled to Russia and now serve in the Russian Orthodox Church, also in Moscow, were not condemned or prohibited from serving. They were simply retired. The leadership of the OKMP claims that they are being persecuted by the state based on religious ground. However, this does not correspond to reality. It's about specific criminal cases against individuals who directly violate Ukrainian laws. Indeed, such cases did not occur in the past, which is why society perceives them as extremely acute. The number of parishes expressing a desire to switch from the OKMP to the Orthodox Church of Ukraine has sharply increased. There are already regions in Ukraine where there is no a single OKMP parish, such as Ivano-Frankivsk. At the same time, those priors and parishioners who still prefer to remain in the OKMP have not obstacles to doing so. Sorry, I need your help with something happened. It's interesting that in their statements regarding persecution on religious grounds, the OKMP supports the Russian Orthodox Church. We can recall the letter from Patriarch Kirill to Patriarch Theophilus III of Jerusalem, in which he complains about the expulsion of the OKMP from Kiev-Pechersk Lavra and refers to it as a persecution. It's quite surprising to read this, considering the Metropolitan Onufry disassociated himself from the Patriarch Kirill. In just 1 year, church life in Ukraine ceased to be an internal matter of those who are directly involved in it, turning into a significant factor of state policy and, most important, security. Today, this process continues. On the instructions of President Zelensky, the cabinet minister developed a draft law that will significantly complicate the operational activities of the OKMP in Ukraine. The document is currently under consideration by the parliament. People call it the law on the prohibition of Moscow Church, but it's not quite. So, according to the constitution, Ukraine is a secular state. The process of amending the constitution is quite difficult, and during martial law it's impossible. That is simply taken, and banning the church will not work, especially since the church is not a legal entity. Moreover, during the time of independence, no religion organizations was ever banned in Ukraine. However, it's quite possible to impose certain restrictions on the economic activity of the church, what in fact is planned to be done. The reason is that the Ukrainian Orthodox Church of Moscow Patriarchate maintains a canonical and actual connection with the aggressor state. This is evidenced in particular by the conclusions of the independent expert group formed by the State Service of Ethnopolitics. According to the procedure, the Cabinet of Ministers relies on this document when preparing a draft of the law. All these examples best illustrate our topic. However, in conclusion, I will talk about religion as a source of stability. At the end of 2022, the state terminated the contract of definite and feel-free lease of the Upper Lavra with the OKMP. The territory of monastery is divided in two parts, Upper and Lower Lavra. So they started from Upper Lavra. It had been assigned in 2013 during the time of President Viktor Yanukovych and Prime Minister Mykola Azarov. The Lavra is a UNESCO site and belongs to the state. The decision was political, as the contract itself was drawn up legally imperfectly, so only political will was needed to terminate it. Until March 29, representatives of the OKMP had to leave the territory of Lower Lavra, where the monastery is located and where monastic life takes place. Up to this point, up to this moment, the process is still ongoing. As the authorities have repeatedly emphasized that no one will be forcibly expelled from the Lavra. At present, the work of the Orthodox Church of Ukraine male monastery is being established in the Lavra, headed by the temporary head Archimandrit Avrami, who himself transferred to the Orthodox Church of Ukraine and called for the same brethren. The State Commission continues to inventory process of the Lower Lavra, which is owned by the Ministry of Culture. In addition, the largest Kiev-Pechersk Lavra, there are two more Lavras in Ukraine, in West Pochaevska, in East Svetogirska. Both are also currently under the control of the UOK MP, Pochaevska until 2052, Svetogirska indefinitely. As in the case of Kievo-Pechersk Lavra, these contracts can be terminated, and I would venture to admit that it will happen already this year, with Pochaevska sure. This year, 2023, began for Ukrainians with a historical event. For the first time in 300 years, the Ukrainian church returned to Ukrainian Lavra. On Orthodox Christmas, on the 7th of January, His Beatitude Epiphany presided over a solemn service in the main church of the shrine, the Assumption Cathedral. Thousands of people gathered in the church and in the courtyard, even those who don't belong to the church and never go to services. The Orthodox Church of Ukraine is now not only about faith, but also about national consensus belonging to Ukraine and Ukrainians. Thank you. It's all.
I'm always asking myself when I read mass media in Ukraine, or when I learn about this sociological surveys, that the Ukrainian Orthodox Church is recognized by many as something bad, and people don't want to associate with it. It's inside Ukraine. But what I see, for example, in Germany, among the refugees, that the majority of religious refugees are going to the parishes under Onufry. The second big part goes to the parishes where there are, for example, Ukrainian priests, but which belong to Moscow Patriarchate. To Russian Orthodox Church. And then there are Greek Catholic Church, and almost no one is going to when there is a priest sometimes coming from the Orthodox Church of Ukraine, or in the Ecumenical Patriarchate. How can you explain? For me, I'm very puzzled. And by the way, when often the refugees were coming to the Ecumenical Patriarchate, priest was saying Slava Ukraini, but many of them, they said Slava Bogu. So they were responding like it's not the right way to greet them. And so for me, it's like two different pictures which I cannot reconcile between them. Can you explain me this, please?
Thank you for this question. As you know, according to Thomas, we, Orthodox Church of Ukraine, cannot have our parishes not on the territory of Ukraine, only inside Ukraine borders. So it's a huge problem. And we understand it now during a big war very well, because before it wasn't really a problem for anybody. So we cannot create and founded our own parishes, but in each country, each city, it's another situation. I don't know how in Germany, here in Prague, for example, I also firstly when I came here, I am start to search. I'm looking normal church. Normal in my understanding is without pro-Moscow bishops and etc. Yeah, and it's a huge success if you have a possibility to go to the church with pro-Ukrainian bishops, really, but it's a rare situation. So how to solve this problem, I don't know. We need to solve it with in collaboration of Constantinople. It's understandable, and we need to have a position of Patriarch for me. I know that it's a cooperation on this question between Beatitude Epiphany in Kiev and Exarch of Constantinople in Kiev, Mikhail. Komansky. So they tried to do something when some Ukrainian peoples anywhere asked to give them Ukrainian prize. They tried to solve this problem, but unsuccessfully, not in all cases.